All right, what's up, guys? I hope you're doing well. We're gonna see how this goes because I got a new webcam. I noticed the one on my laptop was kind of staticky, and sometimes it was just trash. Uh, Computer's getting old, so whatever. Got a new webcam. It seems like it worked. It's not as colorful, but like it gets a lot better resolution, so maybe that's better. It also has a light so that if it gets dark, you can actually see my face. But anyways, so I was basically just browsing the Federal Reserve website, doing some more research on the next few posts that are coming out, um, just on the website and stuff. And I came across this one. It's in the news events or whatever on their site. One of the announcements, it was Leo Brainerd talking about a CBDC basically, and I've heard their name a few times. Haven't looked too much into them. Um, in terms of the Lale or Brainerd. Um, but I've done a little bit of research about CBDCs, so like central bank digital currencies and everything else. And so I was like kind of wanting to know more about what the Federal Reserve kind of plans on doing that because I've heard a few things about it. Most of the stuff I've heard about in terms of central bank digital currencies was more of from the studies that China has been doing. Um, but anyways, to kind of get more into what her speech is saying and everything else, and this is all on the Fed's website. I put a link in the description too, just literally this one, Federal Reserve website. It's all there, just so you guys can get it easier if you want to read it yourself. But one of the things she said, in recent years, there has been explosive growth in the development and adoption of new digital assets that leverage distributed ledger technologies and cryptography. Basically, just all the DeFi stuff and everything else for people who don't really um, either know a lot about it or haven't researched much about it. It's pretty self explanatory for the people who are kind of more immersed in the space and pay attention to that stuff. Crypto's a thing now. So, these crypto platforms facilitate a variety of activities, including lending, trading, and custodying crypto assets. In some cases, outside the traditional regulatory guardrails for investor and consumer protection, market integrity, and transparency. So, just like everything that is involved with the public sector in any form or fashion, if they don't like it or if it's any form of competition, it seems like it's always outside of regulatory guardrails, which sometimes it is actually, but that just kind of seems like a go-to kind of phrase in a way. And it's always keep in mind it's always for your protection, and everything else because we're just going to ignore all the other history and stuff that they do themselves. So we're just going to ignore that, because it's always for your own good. Didn't you hear? Um, which a lot of the things too, like with for me, a central bank digital currency and everything else, it would make a lot more sense. Um, Let me explain a little. I see both. I see this their point, um, but I think that there's a massive trade-off in that people like to look at benefits and not consequences. And so basically, people will just be like, "Oh, here's all the benefits of, in this case, a CBDC," or but they're not actually going to look at the consequences. So my biggest thing too is like, do you really want the federal government seeing every little transaction you do, where that goes and everything else? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Doesn't really matter. That's your opinion or what you believe. I'm just saying that's something you need to be cognizant of before you say two or four, said, in this case, CBDC. Um, and basically, just preparing for the payment system in the future because people are using crypto and stuff for other things. Um, and I might bring it up now because I don't remember if I highlighted somewhere else later in the speech. But specifically with like the whole money laundering and everything else, that's a big talking point in here. It's probably later in here as well. But I always thought it was funny because I was having a conversation with girlfriend's mother a few years ago about Bitcoin because she didn't really know what it was and everything else. Or she kind of knew what it was, but her thing was like that's only used like it's only used by like criminals and stuff who are trying to like steal you or like steal money and move it outside of the United States illegally. And then like my only response was like, what do you think they've been using before now? It's like they've been using dollars. It's nothing new. Like, what do you think the dollar's used for? Um, Whatever. Doesn't mean they're the only ones using it. I think it's the same argument. But because you can't track cash, right? Not really. It's not like it has a web address you can just go to or see an account number or a routing number for a physical dollar bill. But anyways, so in light of the rapid digitalization of the financial system, the Federal Reserve has been thinking critically about whether there is a role for a potential U.S. central bank digital currency in the digital payment landscape of the future and about its potential properties, costs, and benefits. Right? Okay. So, nonetheless, certain challenges remain, such as lack of access to digital banking and payment services for some Americans and expensive and slow cross-border payments. I can get the cross-border payments and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I haven't really sent money outside of the United States except when I went to Germany in high school as an exchange student. Um, and that was just having to deal with like being sent money while I was in Germany and everything else because I was 14 in high school. It's not like I was packing bank. So it was an exchange student trip. But anyways, I never really understood the argument. The whole like lack of digital banking, like the unbanked people and everything else. It's like it's not that hard to get a bank account. It's been a while since I went to go get one, but it pretty much like just showed up. I think I had an ID and some money to put in the account, and then I signed the papers, and that was pretty much it. I mean, just we're talking like just a regular checking account, not something obnoxious. And then as soon as I got it, I literally just called to get another one. I literally just called the bank. I was like, "Hey, can I have another one?" And I was sent a card, and that was it. Um, so I haven't looked too much into like the maybe there. I'm hoping at least there's probably a hell of a lot more nuance to this that I just am not thinking of, I guess, because I don't really know. I'll look into it more. It's kind of curious. But in addition, it is important to consider how new forms of crypto assets and digital money may affect the Federal Reserve's responsibilities to maintain financial stability, a safe and efficient payment system, household and business access to safe central bank money, and maximum employment and price stability. Right. And so my biggest thing that comes to mind is when I see that basically household and business access to the central bank money mostly is basic. It seems like it's almost making like bank reserves legal tender, which is not a good thing. Like that's a good way for the government to, or more the Federal Reserve, because there is a distinction between the Federal Reserve and the government, kind of in paper. It's arguable whether or not that's still there, since it's kind of become it's a political entity in a way. I mean, like they use forward guidance, which kind of like politics. Basically just being like telling you 40 times they're going to raise interest rates before they actually do, stuff like that. It's also like they're appointed by the president, so the board of governors and such is appointed by the president, and so that's kind of there's a bit of an incentive there. So that kind of raises eyebrows, but it's also like it's one speech, so you can't expect all of that nuance and everything to be explained in I mean, like, I don't know. I didn't actually watch the speech. I just read this is the transcript, I'm assuming. Um, I just read that. And I mean, like, it took me like 5, maybe 10 minutes to read and highlight and everything else. So it's not like you can get too much in depth in that amount of time to expect that kind of clarification. So it's just something that, like, the wording raises my eyebrows, but it doesn't really say anything, because again, it's I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the actual laws and stuff that they do, I guess, that they pass, like how long they are, but like it's a hell of a lot more than a 10-minute read, to say the least. Um, okay, so further on, basically, responsible innovation has the potential to increase financial inclusion and efficiency and to lower costs within guardrails that protect consumers and investors and safeguard financial stability. Um, one of the things I noticed is this financial stability is everywhere in the speech, which is because that's one of the congressionally mandate or congressionally designed mandate, or however you want to pronounce it. Congress has mandated them to. That's one of their responsibilities is financial stability, along with maximum employment and everything else. You define how it is because it does not have a defined number. And I say that because look at the Fed's website. That's their own words. Um, that's actually in one of the posts that'll be out soon as well. Um, maybe in the next few days. We'll see. It's being edited right now. Um, and did I lose my spot? Okay, so as we assess the range of future states of the financial system, it is prudent to consider how to preserve ready public assets access to government issued risk free currency in the digital financial system, the digital equivalent of the financial reserves issuance of physical currency. Okay, I don't know about you, but my grocery bill has doubled. So I would hardly say that the currency itself is risk free, um, because it's one of those things. Currency is just a unit of measure. It really it's kind of it's a medium of exchange, right? And so like you have this whole like I can buy groceries or pay my car or pay for gas or pay rent and all that other stuff. It's compared to what, right? The currency is a currency is a way to measure the value of something, so to speak, almost relative to other things. There's a bunch of other things that can go on, like cross currents or whatever. But like, say, like, kind of some, like, look at like two groceries or whatever. Like, you look at apples and oranges, just whatever. That's the example that popped in my head. And like, I haven't bought them in so long. We're just gonna say like, say an apple's $2 and an orange is one, and so you're measuring them in the same currency, so the apple is twice as valuable for whatever reason, whether that be labor, cost, transportation, whatever it took to get that apple at the store, and so on. It's just one way to do that. So to say it's risk free, um, I think that has a lot of, or well, I think that kind of sits in the has the same reasoning on why people would say like United States or U.S. Treasuries were risk free for a while, or that I think they still say that sometimes. Which I mean, that's sure thing. Um, we'll see how that goes with how interest rates are right now. Anyways, that's not the point of this. So, Brink talks about it being privacy protected, which is a good thing. That's one thing that I brought up. They don't say, oh, this was a part of the article and everything else. They did like an actual study or something. They wrote a paper. Um, and some of the principles of a potential CBDC that they were talking about is privacy protection, so that consumer data was safeguarded and stuff. And then it's like, okay, who's doing that? And then they talk about like it's intermediated, so that like it seems like the Federal Reserve themselves, rather. Yeah, so it seems like the Federal Reserve themselves would not have access to the data and go through an intermediary, kind of like commercial banks are right now with the dollars and stuff, or with the US dollar and everything. At least that's what it seems to me. Widely transferable, it's currency, and identity verified. So here it is. So law enforcement can continue to combat money laundering and funding of terrorism. Excuse me. What's the dollar used for? That's pretty much my only comment on that. Okay. So any consideration of a CBDC must include a robust evaluation of its impact on the stability of the financial system, not only as it exists today, but also in the future. Yeah. Financial stability over and over and over again, which is important. I mean, that's one of their mandates, obviously. And so we don't want inflation to be 20% and then go down to like -5% and then do all this other stuff like it did in the 1940s. Um, I think that was pretty close to what it was in the 40s. There was like one year where it was like 19 something percent, and then the very next one it was like -3% or something like that. I don't obviously don't have the graph in front of me, but I remember it went like it was obnoxiously large, and then we actually had deflation right afterwards. Um, and so basically, she talks about stable coins a lot, and basically the current trend, as she says, in the stable coin market in the future could come to be dominated by just one or two issuers. And so earlier she talks a lot about stable coins. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about stable coins, just that besides the very basic stuff, I don't really deal a lot with crypto. That's not really my thing. I mean, I've looked some into Bitcoin and a little other stuff, and I think it's I love the idea of it, and I think that the actual technology and stuff that went into it would be very beneficial to go into multiple other things. Like I think it'd be a very good versatile idea. And hopefully it's used elsewhere, not Bitcoin itself, but like the idea of how Bitcoin works, I think would be great for many other things. Basically, kind of it seems like she's talking about making the US CBDC basically a stable coin or equivalent and stuff like that. And she talked a little bit about earlier with like how depending on how those stable coins are backed, I guess, like how the US dollar used to be backed by gold and stuff like that. They're all collateralized with different things. Sometimes they're dollars, sometimes they're dollar equivalents or whatever. It depends on the coin and a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, I don't go too far in depth with that. I don't really. It's interesting, but it's not. I don't care that much, to be honest. It's not the stuff I play with. But more international considerations that she talked about. So decisions by basically competition. Basically, there's other ones. Other countries are doing this. Either have already started them or are testing them or whatever. And basically, there's a bit of it like here, the People's Bank of China. Digital Yuan in their pilot program has been going on for about 2 years. Stuff like that. So basically, do we even have a choice if we can have a CBDC, will the dollar stay relevant and remain the reserve currency and everything else? Seems more like it was a quick proposition. I mean, it's 3 paragraphs, not a 500-page book. So, let's see. Yeah. So basically, just maintaining the dollar's relevance, a U.S. CBDC may be one potential way to ensure that people around the world who use the dollar can continue to rely on the strength and safety of U.S. currency to transact and conduct business in the digital financial system. Right? It is important to consider how the United States can continue to play a lead role in the development of standards governing international digital financial transactions involving CBDCs consistent with norms such as privacy and security. Um, and basically just talking about how they've basically already done some research on it. This was the one that really, I didn't know this, but let's see, in parallel with the board's public consultation on CBDC, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, in collaborations with MIT, has developed a theoretical high-performance transaction processor for CBDCs. They recently published the resulting software under an open source license as a way of engaging with broader technology community and technical community and promoting transparency and verifiability. Right. So they've already been doing research on it and everything else. They apparently already have a transaction processor and stuff like that. Also, the Reserve Bank at New York has established a innovation center, basically validating, designing, building, and launching new financial technology products and stuff like that. So doesn't seem that in and of itself doesn't seem exclusive to CBDCs. It's more generalized, but still, definitely seems to fall in that category, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, it seems like this is a way things will probably go. I mean, more on a kind of a I guess you could say personal basis. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. I don't see how we might not have some form of this in the future anyway, because I've seen arguments and people actually argue about it, that the like the dollar is already digital. Oh, okay, yeah, kinda. But it's not a central bank digital currency. It's completely different. The dollars and stuff that you own in your bank account are not the same as bank reserves. It's basically a different currency. I think it is a different currency if you kind of think about it. It's like their I think a good way to think about it is as bank reserves denominated in dollars. Which I mean, like we don't even need, or well, we need bank reserves. I'm still kind of thinking about that. That's part of, I just did the outline for a post talking about the different kinds of reserve regimes the Federal Reserve has done, at least in recent decades, going back on the whole study of the Federal Reserve and everything else. I just kind of wanted to start doing this because when I was bored playing around and thought I would share it because it's interesting. I might do more of these actually. Maybe not just like the speeches themselves, but whatever news and stuff the Federal Reserve posts, see what they're up to. Stalk the Federal Reserve. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys tonight. I don't plan on doing another one. It's already getting pretty late. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you guys in the next video.